Hi everyone, how are you? This is Bethany Gagne, founder of Numinous, the organization that sponsors the Global Peaceful Cities Project. And this is the 7th in a series that I'm doing of about 14 that is titled Living the Field as a Consciousness Athlete. And this series is for anybody who kind of knows that we're living in a larger understanding, a larger maybe body of energy, or that there's this connection to this field that's larger than us. And somehow if we could figure out how to harmonize with that field, would it be possible for us to create different outcomes in our lives? And the answer to that is yes, and which has been figured out long before Law of Attraction, long before the movie The Secret, long before, all the stuff on intention now. In fact, actually it was figured out by the early Taoists in a concept known as Wu Wei. And so understand that when we're talking about law of attraction, or you're talking about those types of things, it's not your thoughts so much. So people just think, oh, I'm just going to try to think happy thoughts and then I'm going to create good stuff. Well, and then, by the way, what usually happens is people try to do that and then they really start taking a look at their mind. And so often people will say, geez, I used to think I was a happy person. And then I started looking at my thoughts and I realized really just how negative they actually are. So anyway, so people try to work from thought, which is very weak. There's not much to it. It's very flimsy. And so it's this understanding that the field is not responding to our thoughts. It's responding to our state of being. And the Taoists knew this a long time ago. And they describe that there's this state of walking through this world where you can manifest things much easier. It's called the Wu Wei state. And there's a gentleman known as Ted Slingerland, who I have a quote from him that I've been using forever about the Wu Wei state. And since, I've been following him through many, many years, and you can see he's become really well known. He's kind of like the Western authority on Wu Wei, basically. And I encourage you to go look up his videos. He has a presentation at Google on the Wu Wei state. So I'm going to read the definition from Ted Slingerland here of the Wu Wei state, and we'll talk a little bit about this, okay? So it's essentially that it's not your thoughts that are manifesting, it's your state of being, and how I've been using the word calibrate, how we can calibrate our state of being to the field around us to have better outcomes, right? Because understand that this field around us is loaded with information, loaded with information. And by the way, guess who's inputting that information? You and me and all of us. So all of the kind of hatred and everything that's happening on the planet today, everything that's happening, we are feeding that field of information. In fact, years ago, I did an interview with Dr. Roland McCratty at the Institute of Heart Math, and his question was, what are you feeding the field today? So understand that there is this field around us. And it's from that field that we are manifesting, that we are kind of dancing with that field. And that's how these outcomes come. So the goal of the New Peace Project is for us to infuse this field with a lot of light, a lot of goodness, a lot of sweetness. And we need as many people as possible to do that. But what will happen is, because if we've seen it happen over and over and over again on a smaller scale, is if we got enough people every day showing up and infusing this field with light, infusing this field with sweetness and goodness, then it's almost like that energy is there for people to resource. Off on a totally different tangent, but I gotta finish this. And that is that understand that when people are feeling depressed, lonely, addicted, all of that, their energy is contracted and it's pulled in, and you kind of don't have enough energy in the system to pull yourself up and out. Okay, and that's just another whole story. But so that's what we're going to be doing with the Peace Project. Okay, so back to Wu Wei. This idea that there's this field around us that we can work with in a harmonious way. So this is, he's Stanford trained professor Ted Slingerland, who's now super well known for this concept of Wu Wei. And he says that Wu Wei is best understood as a unifying theme underlying many Chinese philosophical schools. And that describes an ideal way of walking through this world that is, quote, acting effortlessly and spontaneously in harmony with a normative standard. That normative standard is the field, God, whatever it is, okay? Whatever you want to call it, the quantum field, God, the mind, God, whatever. So you're acting effortlessly and spontaneously in harmony with this normative standard, aka the field, and thereby acquiring an almost magical efficaciousness in moving through this world and attracting people to oneself. I will read that again. So understand that this law of attraction stuff long ago was figured out, okay? And as what we try to do in this Western culture is chunk everything down to a soundbite. And that is, so tired of it all. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to say it again. Wu Wei is best understood as a unifying theme underlying many Chinese philosophical schools that describes an ideal way of acting effortlessly and spontaneously in harmony with a normative standard, aka the field, and thereby acquiring an almost magical efficaciousness in moving through the world and attracting people to oneself. Okay, so there's precedence here. This is not just new age crap, okay? This is like, see, understand that back then, they were closer to their spirit. They were not constantly putting cell phones in their face and watching a bunch of crap on Netflix. They didn't have that stuff going on. When the lights went out, the lights went out, and people had to sit with their minds and their thoughts, and they knew stuff that we are glossing right over, that we're stamping out in ourselves in this culture, but they had a wisdom because they had a quieter mind, so they could sense more refined realities, okay? So what happens is this state of being is, again, we're acting effortlessly and spontaneously in harmony with a normative standard. So, and creating this magical efficaciousness of moving through the world and attracting people to oneself. So now in his talks in Google, he will talk about 4 different ways of approaching the Wu Wei state, and then says none of them work all the time. And that is why, but understand by approaching the Wu Wei state from each of those 4 states, you can get a glimpse of the bigger picture. But, it's kind of a very difficult state to explain. In fact, when I usually would teach this with the old athlete classes, I would teach it in 2 different classes. And because it's so hard for people to get their mind around it, or their being around it. And then even that, just recently with one of the advanced classes, I weaved in some Wu Wei into the new topic, okay? So what are we doing in the Consciousness Athlete class? And I'm going to leave this video with some ways that you to apply it. But I want you to know that sometimes I'm a little frustrated in these little videos that I'm doing, because I know that I would spend, like yesterday I did one on worthiness. I would have the athletes practice for a month holding worthiness in their nervous system, right? Like that's not just that's not just something light on the top of the head. Like, okay, I'm going to be worthy, which is what a lot of people do. You see a lot of people posing and, I'm worthy, you're worthy, everybody's trying to like prove to their worthiness to everybody. And it's a state of being, and if you really are holding it, you're not trying to convince anybody of how worthy you are, because you know it yourself, okay? So we would spend a month just practicing that, holding that stance in the nervous system. But so with this Wu Wei state, it's got nuances to it. So what do? I'm teaching people how to cleanse their energy field so that they can have this better dialogue with themselves and this normative standard or the field. They can live in harmony with it more. And then when you live in harmony with it more, the way you walk through this world completely changes, okay? It's not the kind of thing where you're going to be like holding on to your coffee, really stressed out, head down, No, Wu Wei state, it's a totally different way of being and walking in this world. So one of the things I can tell you about the Wu Wei state, and this is way that you can it's just like, this is my little attempt at a soundbite on this very pretty big topic. My attempt at a soundbite is this. One way to try to discover the Wu Wei state for yourself in a soundbite is that you would, and I used to practice this years ago. I was working like at that point a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I would say, okay, this Saturday, I'm just going to not make any plans, and I'm going to practice what would it be like without my mind going off and telling me what to do, but kind of sensing from moment to moment what I'm called to do. Okay? So it's this idea of sensing, where are you animated to work? What is calling you? And you got to shut down the rational mind. You shut down all the chatter, okay? Knock that all off, which I know is far easier said than done. But when you're trained at this level, you can. I'll just literally say, Bethany, shut up, and get my mind to just quiet and silence so I can hear a larger wisdom, right? So it's this idea of practicing really being attentive to another level of information that is swirling all around you, basically, that's part of who you are. So the way I can tell you that's very practical on how to apply this is this, and I've shared this with many, many people, and people love this topic, or people love doing this, okay? I cannot tell you how many times in my life that this has saved my ass. Like basically in times when I was like maybe late for studying for an exam, or I didn't quite have something done. Basically a lot in college, this used to save me, although I didn't know what the name of it was. But basically you wait until you feel animated to do something. You feel animated to do something. So I'll give you an example of really practical everyday life. You sit down at your desk at work. It's piled high with paper. You have so much to do, and you know you only have 3 hours to work, and yet there's so much to do, and maybe you're feeling like you've been on a treadmill, and you're already feeling low in energy, and you're just like staring at it and just wondering how it's ever gonna move, and you know, it's an eternal thing, you're always underwater, and that whole story. I suggest that you sit down, and instead of telling yourself what you need to do first, or instead of berating yourself and going through that whole story, I can't tell you how many times I just be like, okay, I could pick up this piece of paper and I could take care of this one. And pick it up, take care of it, put it over here, whatever. And then you like look at the big pile and you say, I don't know, what do I feel animated to work on next? Well, it wouldn't be really bad if I worked on that right now. I could deal with that right now, right? And you pick up that one and you do that one, and you just kind of like keep doing that, like from this area of effortlessness, of just like, you know, there's no story behind it. You're just going on your intuition. Now, what I've learned is that this piece of paper is connected to that piece of paper, is connected to that piece of paper. And what'll happen is your animation, which is really coming from you in this dance with the field inviting you, saying, hey, work on that piece of paper first. And that very act of like picking up that one piece of paper is actually connected to a whole bunch of other pieces of paper. And then it'll be the kind of thing where somebody calls you at just that moment and you have just the information to give that person at that moment because that was the first piece of paper you picked up. Not because you sat down and go, I really should work on this first because that's for, you know, I really should do that and I should do that and I should have done that and all that crap, right? No, just sit down. You got 3 hours. Do what you can. And the same thing happens if you say have to clean a room, right? Just give yourself a 2-hour time limit, look around, you know, what do you want to do first, you know? Pick up that. And it could be that you're feeling called to go clean your closet, you know? Maybe you're being called to go clean your closet because something in your life, you're looking for an answer to something in your life and it's tucked away in your closet upstairs. Now what happens is at the end of the 3 hours, you're going to be like, holy shit, I can't believe how much work I did. Like, it's crazy and I feel like it's effortless. So that's the one clue I can give you, is follow your animations. And at first, it's going to take a lot of, you're going to feel like you're doing something wrong. You're going to feel like, oh, you should be doing something else. I mean, I was raised to work super hard. And when I first started working with this years ago, I was a grant writer. And I would feel guilty because I knew there was this grant deadline coming up. But my spirit, my animations were telling me to go in all these other directions. And yet I had a grant deadline due. Like, that's a hard deadline, right? So, and I would kind of be conviction in the back of my mind. But after a while, I really learned to let all that go because this has held me so well over so many years that I know to trust my animations and that this piece of paper is connected to the whole field. And that's why I'm being called to that. So, again, this is a series about living the field and this amazing resource that's free, that's available to all of us, and yet we're stuffing it out in our culture. We're just like stuffing all this out and putting all this crap in, right? And it is not serving us when really there's a much easier way to walk through this world. As this talks about, it's an effortless way, it's a spontaneous way, it's a magical efficaciousness of attracting people to oneself. So if we start to develop this humility, it's a humility when we work with the field. We are recognizing that we are not the managers of the universe and we're really not the managers of our lives. That we are in this quantum soup, we are connected with each other and there are many other factors. So how do we walk in this field of intelligence and to be able to tip things to actually work for us. And by the way, the field is equal opportunity. So if I get it to work for me and I say I want it for the highest and best for all involved, because that's the only way I would really want to do it, because other than that, I'm setting up a polarity and that's not cool. I'm setting up if I were to just go around and just think about me, then I would be creating a dissonance in my field. So I'm always like, that I want everybody to be happy at the end of anything, right? Because that's a balance. And then I don't have that tug, that kind of karmic tug in my soul. So imagine that there would be a way. It's like living with your best friend all the time. It's like living with someone who is supporting you and helping you walk through this crazy world, and to feel somewhat of a peace and somewhat of an order, even though you got to practice a little disorder because it's a nonlinear field. It's a different kind of order. You basically have to learn how to live in the unknown and feel really comfortable there, knowing that it's working for you. So I know this is a kind of a big topic. Understand, I used to spend a long time on this. I'm constantly going back to it with the athletes. But we're all practicing and we're all really starting to share some amazing stories because the athletes are really starting to live in the Wu Wei state. And just know that there really is something to this work. And I'm inviting a lot of people. And in the new Peace Project, I'm going to be kind of really giving you the basics every day. You can start applying a lot of this in your own life. But we got some great people starting in the new class, and they're going to be writing these amazing meditations for peace in the world. And I'm asking every one of us to download love and light and sweetness and goodness into this world. We need to champion goodness at this point. Because it just doesn't seem to happen on its own. All right, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.